Hey, Seasoned Athletes, I'm Robin Leggett, and this is the Seasoned Athlete Podcast. And for the month of January, I am throwing it back to some of the most popular episodes of 2019. Seasoned Athlete is your home for inspiring stories and motivational advice from competitive athletes representing a wide variety of sports who all share one common bond. They are all over 40 years old. We are here to prove one story at a time that age does not have to prevent you from achieving your bold athletic and fitness goals. To learn more about this podcast and see show notes from this or any episode, visit seasonedathlete.me. And if you like what you hear, I would love it if you'd subscribe, share with your friends, and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you really love us, you can support our ability to continue to bring inspirational stories to you by either a one-time donation or by becoming a monthly sponsor. Just go to seasonedathlete.me and click on one of the Support Seasoned Athlete buttons to help support this DIY independent podcast. The episode I chose to re-air today was one of the most downloaded episodes of 2019, and it happens to feature a woman who has become a friend over the last year. She's someone I met while racing in the competitive age group division at Spartan races in 2019. Perhaps she stood out to me because she was frequently on the podium, and often in the first place position. It's clear people connected with her story, so I wanted to share it again, especially for those who didn't get a chance to hear it in the first place. When I first aired this episode, she was the 2018 50-plus Spartan World Champion, and now she can add the 2019 Spartan 55 to 59 age group World Champion title as well. Let's go back to episode 57 and reacquaint ourselves with a woman who goes by the Over 50 Spartan on Instagram. This is Andrea Owen. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Robin. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm so excited to talk to you today. Are you ready to drop some seasoned athlete knowledge on our listeners?
Absolutely.
Awesome. You are Andrea Owen, an Arizona-based wife, mother of three, and competitive obstacle course racer. In 2014, after a long hiatus from sports and athletics, you somewhat reluctantly ran your first Spartan race, and you were immediately hooked. You have since completed 79 Spartan races along with a variety of other races. In the last 5 years of racing, you've earned 9 Masters Elite podiums, multiple age group podiums. You came in first in the 2018 Spartan U.S. Championship Series, and you are the 2018 50 and over Spartan World Champion. In 2019 alone, you have come in first or second in your age group in every single Spartan race you have run, and you are currently number 1 in the world in the women's 55 to 59 age group. Is there anything vital personally, professionally, or from your athletic life that you'd like to take a quick moment to fill in?
No, I don't think so.
Awesome. From here, I'm going to ask the big question that I ask all my guests, and that is, what is your age at this moment in time?
I am 57.
Let's start from the beginning. When did you start playing sports, and what did your early athletic life look like?
I started doing gymnastics when I was about 8 or 9 years old and continued competitively all the way through high school and some college.
And then when did you stop after college, or did you continue doing anything beyond that?
I stopped pretty much. I mean, I would go to the gym occasionally, go running occasionally, but nothing where I was training for anything or doing anything real specific.
So spending most of your early life from age 8 through college pursuing athletic endeavors, what was the reason that you stopped? Because it seems like that would be pretty ingrained in your life. What caused you to stop?
Life. Getting a job, working. I was a buyer at Costco for many years, and then I met my husband and got married and had children. And so just being very busy with work and family.
So you got into the family life thing, as many people do. When did you, so this was fairly early, like you were in your 20s when you pretty much stopped competing, right?
Right.
And then was the Spartan race that you did in 2014, was that really like the first competitive thing you did after? Or were there any other things here and there?
I think so. I don't remember that we ever did any 5Ks or any runs or anything. No, I think that was pretty much the first competitive thing I'd done in a long time.
So you were in your early 50s at that point?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. So you went like
yeah,
30 years pretty much.
30 years before I did something competitive, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about how this came about, how you ended up running the Spartan race.
Well, my son, who was a sophomore in high school at the time, got this wild hair and heard about Spartan and decided that he wanted to do it. And so he dragged me and my husband out to the race out here in Phoenix. We stood and we watched him do it. And I thought, you are crazy. Why are you doing this? This is just nuts. I mean, I could not believe it. And I think that was in like February of 2014. And then he convinced me to start training. And I mean, I had been working out a little, doing some stuff at the gym and things like that. And he convinced me to try one. And that was, I believe it was in July of that year. I started out with and I listened to Kim, and she actually started with the same race. It was the Utah Beast when it was a beast.
So this is Kim Cole we're talking about, who I interviewed in a recent episode. Did you know her at the time, or did you just happen to start?
Oh, I've met her since then. I've become really good friends with her. But no, but it was interesting listening to your podcast, because when she said that, I went, oh, my gosh.
Oh, you didn't know. You didn't know till you heard the podcast that you guys did your first race on the same day.
It was different. She did it in 13 and I did it in 14. But yeah, I mean, go big or go home, right?
Right into a beast, which it's so funny because, you know, I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, and people come to me to run their first race. And most of them are like, what's the absolute shortest race I could do? Because everything else is scary. And what's also interesting is people I've interviewed for the show, I actually hear that story more frequently than you would think. When I interview runners, it's often like, yeah, my first race was a marathon, you know, and it's just, I think it speaks to the competitive personality and the driven personality that you would be more open to run a really, really tough race as your first race. And it probably speaks to what kind of competitor you have become.
Yeah, and we ran open, you know, I ran with my husband, and I remember I was so scared because I was so afraid of every obstacles and everything. And I started out, I probably ran with him the first half mile, and then the competitive juices, you know, kicked in, and I was like, see ya.
That didn't take long.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those competitive juices. So what was it in that first race that connected with you? You know, you're in your early 50s. You haven't done anything competitive in 30 years. What was set off in your brain that led to you now 79 races later, led to you kind of starting down this new path?
I wasn't the running, because I've never been a really great runner and never really enjoyed running that much. I think it was the obstacles. It was just the combination of the running and the obstacles, and being from a gymnastics background. You know, the obstacles kind of felt pretty natural. Mm-hmm. For me. I mean, yeah, I had to learn, you know, technique on some things, and I had to learn how to do, because most of those obstacles just require technique. And I've always been very strong, I think, from the gymnastics. So I got done, and I remember the slip wall being at the end and being super muddy and just struggling to get over it. But I got done, and it was just like, yeah, I'll do that again.
Yeah, that's cool, I guess. So, when did you transition into more of a competitive Spartan athlete?
Gosh, I don't even remember. I don't think I ran that many open. I think my son, again, who was always pushing me. He's a good athlete himself. I think he convinced me. He goes, oh, no, Mom, you need to run elite. You need to, you know, because back then they didn't have even a competitive wave. You either ran open or you ran elite. Mm-hmm. And I transitioned into that pretty quickly once I started training and running, and, you know, I felt more comfortable, and they had the Masters Elite. So, you know, that was a place that I felt like, okay, maybe I can do halfway decent here.
And then how long before you ended up on your first Masters Elite podium?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm asking the tough questions now, looking deep into your history.
Actually, I'm looking at my plaques. They're on my wall right now. My daughter's looking because they have dates on them.
Yeah, it's all dated. Your history is right in front of you.
I know my history. It looks like 2017.
Okay. So it took a few years before you got that first plaque.
16. It might have been 16.
Yeah. So
my first one was in 16, actually. Okay. Because that's when they gave the plaques out.
Yeah. So I got a couple years, and you started hitting podiums, and it sounds like that's just something that has become a part of your life ever since. And And so let's talk about that. You took a 30-year hiatus from any sort of competition. You found this new sport. It connected with you in a couple of ways. It kind of reignited the passion that you felt as a gymnast back in your early years. And you pushed and you drove yourself, and then you landed on your first podium, and you've just proceeded to pretty much dominate, particularly in the masters category and now in your age group. Now that there's age groups in Spartan race and age group competition, you're absolutely dominating in your age group. You were the 2018 Spartan World Champion, U.S. Championship Series champion. You are number 1 in the 2019 U.S. Championship Series. You're usually first place. So you've just been dominating in your age group. What do you think is the key to your success in this style of competition?
I don't know. I think it's, I don't know. I guess I just really enjoy it. Like I said, a straight up running race, I just dread, and I do a few of them a year just, to see what my times are, like for a half marathon or whatever. But I think the combination and the trail running, because I enjoy the trails, and then the obstacles, and I just love the people and the Spartan family, the people that I've met. I go to different cities and I see people that I've made some really good friends, and it's just been really fun.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. Like it's such a wonderful community and vibe, and it's kind of cool to be in a sport where no matter where you go, no matter how far from home you are, you know people. Like you and I ended up racing in Chicago recently, and I'm in California, you're in Arizona. I didn't know if I'd know anybody out there. You probably didn't know if you'd know anybody out there. And then we ran into each other out there, and it's like, it doesn't matter where I go. I've raced in West Virginia. I know people out there.
Oh, you're gonna see people that you're gonna find people there that you know.
Yeah, and then you meet people along the way that that's how you and I met, and that's how you and Kim met, and that's how Kim and I met, and you meet people along the way that you just see in starting corrals over and over again, and that they're either your competition or they're in a nearby age group, and you all can connect about that.
Well, it's been fun. My daughter lives in Florida, so we go to the Florida races, and her fiance have run races, and my daughter that lives here, and her husband have done races, my son and my husband. So, it's become a whole family type thing. And that's been really
That's really cool. It's really cool to be able to connect with your family in this sort of athletic environment, and share this thing together. And so, just kind of reiterating what you touched on, the thing that really stood out in my head is actually that you just said you have fun. Like, you enjoy it. And I think that's key is, finding this thing that you love and you enjoy and that you want to do and you want to train for, can help you become successful in it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a moment to talk about some of the highs and lows of your competitive career now that you have ignited it or reignited it. Can you take us back to what you would consider to be your worst competitive moment, your hardest day, the race that you would prefer to forget, or the moment in a race that you would like to move on from? Just anything like that.
Believe it or not, it took me a while to think about this, because of course we all have good days. We have bad days. We have races we think we could have done better, or we missed an obstacle that we shouldn't. But it was funny because just Big Bear this last year, I think the altitude, it was a little bit cold, and I started out, how it went straight up the hill to start with.
Yep.
And I pushed too hard, and I literally, a half mile in, it was the first time ever in my mind I thought I might DNF. I could not breathe. I was just dying, and you probably know how that felt.
Yes. Yeah.
And I pushed literally, I can't remember a time that I thought, wow, you could DNF. I didn't. I pushed through, and I remember finally getting up over and getting to the twister, which was a 3-part twister, and I did make it across, though I got off that, and I was just dying. I was literally seeing stars, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with me? And I got to the box, and an obstacle I normally make, and I didn't make it, and I had to do that darn penalty loop, which was straight uphill, and I was just like, are you kidding me? And then I got to that wall, which seemed like it was about 20 feet.
Oh, the 8-foot wall that wasn't. Yeah.
The 8-foot wall that wasn't. And I tried that 5 or 6 times, could not get over it, and sat there doing my burpees, just feeling very dejected, just like, missing obstacles that I don't miss.
Mm-hmm.
And I pushed myself along, and it was funny because about, I don't know, 5-6 miles in, I ran into a friend of mine. And we started running together. And at that point, it just changed my whole attitude. And I remembered why I was doing this, because we ran together the rest of the race. I didn't push like I would normally push. I just had fun. And we went through it. We finished it. We cheered each other on. We got to the finish line. And, it almost brought just back, all of a sudden it was like, this is really great. This is fun. And so what started out, I thought was going to be just the most miserable race of my life, and turned into a really fun and positive experience. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I love how you turn that around. And it's interesting to me, hearing you talk about just like, failing things that you don't expect to fail, and how that affected you emotionally. And you go in with a level of expectation, particularly when you're used to a level of success.
Right.
You go in with an expectation like, this is easy, I've got this. And when you don't, it's like, what is wrong? And it's easy to kind of fall into a mental spiral. And in that race in particular, like, the mental game is probably more important than the physical game in certain ways. Like, if you let your mind go into a dark place or self-defeating place, it can be hard to get out of that, and that will affect your race. And so it's interesting to hear about kind of that little spiral. And I remember experiencing that actually in Chicago last year, when I first experienced the mud of Chicago that we also had this year. But just failing obstacles that I shouldn't be failing, and having that just spiral on top of each other. So I've been in that moment, but it's really cool that you were able to connect with somebody, find a friend, and remember why you're out there in the first place. And why you know what Big Bear is about. Everybody talks about Big Bear with a level of dread. And so it's like, what you're getting into, and it's a level of suffering, but there's a reason why you do it. There's a reason why you do these things.
I did it last year, and I don't remember the altitude affecting me quite the way it did this year. I don't know why, but it was just hard to get my breathing right. And it was just, it was a struggle.
Yeah. Altitude doesn't affect me that much, but this year, what I noticed was like finishing obstacles and like jumping down from a monkey bar or jumping down from the twister, and just feeling my heart rate just staying elevated, and it's like, I can't run right now. I just jumped down from an obstacle, and it's like, I can't run right now. My heart's beating.
I felt that way after that 3-part twister that went uphill.
Yeah. And so I definitely experienced that more this year than I remember in previous years. And so, and I've been hearing that story from other people. So I don't know. I don't know what that was all about, but you weren't alone in that.
Yeah.
So,
So that was, honestly, that was probably, I don't know that I've ever thought of DNFing ever in a race before. And that was the first one where I was just like, I can't do this.
Yeah. And once you start thinking that way, it's hard to get out of thinking that way. But I'm glad you were able to find your way out and, connect with somebody and remember the fun of it, and turn your race around completely. And how did you finish that race?
I finished first.
Okay. So it worked out okay.
Yeah, it worked out okay. I was really shocked because when I came down through the rig, they were starting the age group awards, and I thought, oh wow, I must have come in like last, because they're starting age group awards, and you know how they are about waiting until they look at all the tapes and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, how could they be possibly starting these right now? So and then and my husband yelled at me, and he goes, no, I think you're first. And I was like, really? I'm not.
They were just like, were they just talking really slow until they got to the 55 to 59? It's like, I
was done by the time they got to my age group, because I was just coming down when they were starting. I was just coming off the rig, so I just had the rig and the barbed wire crawl. But still, I was just like, wow, what's going on?
Right. I remember that because I was still on the course as well, and I heard it, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not getting a podium. And for me, it was 5th place, but I'm glad that for you it was first. So you got in just in time to grab your medal and get on the podium.
Yes.
So on the other side, tell me about your favorite event, your best race.
Probably Worlds last year, winning the World Championships. That's always a big deal, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's like the culmination of the whole year, and it was real exciting to be able to win that. And then it was just 50 plus. So that was really cool. That's probably one of my best moments. One other thing that I wanted to mention too, that I went to Australia. My husband actually planned an anniversary trip. We went to Australia and we did the Bright Trifecta there. And that was really fun.
How cool. what were some differences in a race in Australia that maybe you don't see here?
The obstacles. They have a few different obstacles there that are really fun that I wish they'd bring to the U.S. They had this thing called the castle where you climb up. You climb up and then it kind of goes, I don't know how to describe it. It goes up and then it kind of jets out and you have to kind of go over this ridge and up over the top. And it was really fun. And the people there were amazing. And but that's in a lot of videos. If you look up the castle, I think a lot of people have requested. I don't know why they don't bring it here, but
yeah.
Other than that, a lot of it was the same. It was the same kind of obstacles and terrain, and but the people were great, and met the race director there, and it was really fun.
What an amazing experience to get to do that too.
Yeah, my husband planned it all. He planned it with that Spartan in mind. So,
it's like you get to a certain point in doing this that's what your vacations look like, right? It's like, I'm going to go, I want to visit the city or I want to go see my family, but I'm going to do it when there's a race.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've been super successful and achieved podiums in a variety of race lengths, from the Spartan Sprint, which is typically 3 to 5 miles, all the way to earning a second place Masters Elite podium in the 30-mile Spartan Ultra race. Why do you think it is that you're able to do well and excel in all these different race lengths?
I don't know. Because running, I don't know, running isn't my strength. I try to catch people on the obstacles more than anything. I feel like my strength in obstacles helps me a lot.
Yeah.
So actually, the runners races, which I consider to be the sprints, because those are where the little sprinters come out and they run, and it's usually flat and they can do the obstacles. I tend to not do as well. I tend to do well in the longer races because I can outlast people, I think.
Yeah, you and I are similar in that way. Like for me, it takes a little while for my little legs to get going. And,
exactly.
it takes me a few miles to warm up. And so for me, it's consistency and endurance that gets me through more than being the fastest.
You have to just go fast.
Yeah, sprint. You don't have time for legs to rev their engines. You don't have time for your legs to warm up. You have to go, and especially stadium sprints, which are the shortest. I
really enjoyed. I did that last weekend here in Phoenix, and I had a blast. I love the stadiums. I think they are so much fun because those are stairs, so that's not really sprinting so much, but. I think those are a blast.
They are a lot of fun, but it's like you're operating in a really high heart rate the entire time. So you got to be able to withstand that. So speaking of race lengths, so what race length or what type of race is your favorite and why?
Probably the Super or the Beast are my favorites just because they're longer races and I have a chance I tend to get faster as the miles go on. Yeah. Like you said, starting out a little bit slower. But being able to, once I get warmed up and get going, I tend to be able to pick up some speed. Also, ones with hills and mountains, I tend to do better just because I can power hike with the best of them. They're not flat where everybody's sprinting and doing a 6-minute pace. So
right.
The Ultra, I hope to do another Ultra this year. I really enjoyed that too. I was really nervous, but it was really fun.
Yeah, I am doing my first Ultra in October. So what advice do you have for me for that or for anyone doing that?
The best advice that was given to me from one of the elite Spartans is, pace yourself. Don't try to go out there, going really fast. He said, we talked about like paces and say, okay, this is your fast pace. This is, try to keep it at this pace the whole time, even though you're going to feel like you need to go faster, keep it this pace. Also, nutrition. And that took me a while to learn was, taking on some of the longer races, some nutrition out with me, making sure I have my Camelback on the longer ones with some nutrition in there and actually drinking it.
Yeah. It's so funny. That's actually been something I've done pretty well with. Like Big Bear, I had my nutrition locked down. I had myself on a schedule. And so I actually felt pretty good the whole time. But a lot of people don't know what to do or they wait till they're hungry before they take something in. And usually that's a little late. But the more you can learn about the sort of preparedness level of a race beyond just the training, but what to bring with you, what to wear and what to eat and drink, like that can take you that could take you so much farther than just focusing on training.
Oh, especially on an ultra, because you come into the transition and having the right food there, to eat. And like I was told, change your socks, change your shoes no matter what. Always, do that. No, even if you don't feel like you need to.
Yeah.
And little things like that, because that's your halfway point and you've already done, 15 miles. So, just little things like that. But like, I think nutrition and just pacing myself was a big thing.
Awesome. So hopefully some people listening beyond just me, I love when I get selfish on the podcast and just ask for advice for myself, but hopefully some people listening are considering doing something like that. And that's great advice for them as well.
Yeah.
So last year you were invited to the first ever that I know of Spartan Combine. Can you talk about what that event was all about, how you were able to get involved, and what the experience was like for you?
Wow, that was very flattering. It was an invite, you got invited to do that. And so I was there with, some amazing athletes, a lot of the pros and, the top elites that were there and all the top age group people were there. It was probably one of the most challenging things I've ever done because they really put you through the paces. There was like 6 or 7 different events, which combined a little bit of running, strength, just all kinds of things. And it went from, 8 in the morning until I think we finished at like 5 at night. And we really didn't stop. I mean, other than in between the different events that we did. And I mean, it pushed you real hard by the last one. And then they made it, shortest to longest. So by the last thing we did at the end of the day was actually the longest one.
Wow.
So they pushed you, and I think they were just trying to see how far they could push. And but it was awesome. It was really neat.
I was out there. This was in Laughlin, Nevada. I was out there for the race, and I was out there. They have, an open house where people can come and try obstacles. And I went out to the open house, and that was probably at the tail end of, or in the it was probably the midpoint of your combine. And I remember hearing about the combine, and they're like, yeah, it'll probably be over by the time the open house happens. And this was like 3 to 5 in the afternoon, and I was like, they are not done. I saw you guys just still going at it, and it was super impressive just watching you go through the obstacles and watching the different events that they were putting you all through. It looked really intense, but from the videos that I saw and from the stuff I saw in person, but really, really cool. So what an amazing experience to get to be a part of.
Oh yeah, no, it was really cool. Like it was dark by the time we finished. So yeah.
And then you raced that weekend as well?
No, I didn't because I had family coming into town for Thanksgiving. And I mean, I wasn't even going to do Laughlin. And the only reason we ended up going was because I got invited to the combine and I really wanted to do it. So we drove in the night before and drove out right afterwards.
Oh, wow. Just one amazing, crazy day.
Yeah.
Cool, but really cool.
But it was worth it. It was really worth it. It was really fun.
Yeah, I hope they continue to do it or something like that. It'd be good to see that sort of become a regular thing, an annual event. So, what types of unique challenges do you find you encounter as an older athlete training and competing at the high level that you do?
I think not overtraining. I tend to want to go gung ho and wanting to, not have rest days and, just go. Like I feel guilty if I don't, train. If I take a day off, it's like, oh, I should be doing something. So I think, being disciplined as far as your training is concerned and realizing your strengths and your weaknesses. And like I had some Achilles problems all last year and I kind of continue to have them. So I have to be careful on my running and the mileage. And I have to listen to my body. If something hurts, I have a physical therapist who knows me very well.
That's a good thing to have.
Yeah. And so, if I have something that doesn't feel quite right, I'll go and talk to him about it to try to nip it in the bud before it becomes something. So I feel like I've been extremely lucky, for the last 5 years and the amount of miles and the amount of training that I've done to stay healthy.
But yeah, it's interesting talking about discipline in regards to most people, when they talk about discipline, they talk about discipline to train and to actually do your workouts. And yours is sort of the opposite. It's the discipline of when to pull back. And that's just a unique perspective that you don't hear all the time.
And my son is always pushing me, always. So
it sounds like that's been the MO from the beginning.
Yeah,
that's what got you into this mess.
He still continues to push me, going, oh, come on, Mom, you can do it. Oh, come on, Mom, you should be running a leap. Okay, Mom, you should be running more miles. Why aren't you running today?
And how old is he now?
He is 21.
So yeah, he's got the brain of a 21-year-old and the body of a 21-year-old. And it's like,
yes,
that's cool. but I'm in my 50s and I have to keep that in mind. Even though you're very healthy, you're probably one of the most fit people in your age group that is out there. But you have to know how to maintain that and how to keep that going. And for people who are a little bit older, it really is recovery and maintenance a lot of the time. So
people ask me, how much longer are you going to do this? And I'm just like, well, as long as my body will let me.
I hear that story a lot on this podcast. It's like, as long as and that's my story too. As long as my body will let me, I will keep doing this. So I love that perspective. So on the other side, what kinds of things have you discovered to be benefits that come along with what is considered to be an older athlete? Like, what has gotten easier for you?
Probably, being able to travel and being able to go to these different races. My husband has a job. He owns his own business. And so we're flexible a lot, and being able to travel and being able to go to these different venues, I think is, benefit of being older rather than, a lot of people are young and have kids and families and you just don't have time or money necessarily to be able to do it. And so I think that's been nice. That's hard.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that's the next question I was going to ask you, actually, because it's something I talked to Kim Cole about because she travels all over the place. Like, she goes to every single U.S. National Series race. And this year for Spartan World Championship qualification, they want you to go to all 5 U.S. National Series races, and those races are all over the country. And most people who are in their 40s and 50s or 30s can't necessarily go all over the country. Can't go from California to Florida to Alabama to Seattle. So I look at my age group, and I actually went in and looked, and it's like a lot of the people in my age group aren't going to more than 2 races. But Kim, as an example, is going to at least 4, I think, if not all of them.
4, yeah. She didn't go to, she's like me. She didn't go to Alabama. Neither one of us did Alabama.
Yeah. But you're still going to 4 of the 5, right?
Yeah, because I'm going to do Utah. I don't need to. I qualified for Worlds this year because I won last year. So I got...
I didn't know if that was how I saw your post about that. And I didn't know if it was because you have so many points at this point that nobody can kick you out of the top, or if there was another reason. Yeah. Oh, cool.
That's why, because I got a pass on that. So instead of doing West Virginia this year, which I did last year, I'm going to do Hawaii. So...
Oh, well, that's nice. It gives you the opportunity to travel somewhere else. I asked her about the travel because I know our listeners who are in this world, that's something that they're really curious about, is like, how do you get to do all this traveling? And so you actually already just answered that you have a little more flexibility in that, in work. And are your kids all grown at this point?
Yeah, they're all grown. And my youngest is my 21-year-old, and he's at ASU. So, they're all out of the house and doing their own thing. So,
yeah. And that's something to think about for people who are, they are at a point where their kids have all moved out and they're empty nesters and maybe looking for a new hobby. And this could be something. And I hear this story with people I've interviewed, a lot of triathletes in particular, because of the amount of training that goes into triathlon. Like, that's something that people start once their kids have all moved out, because it's like, well, now I can do these like really long brick training sessions that I couldn't do when they were younger. So yeah, thanks for answering my question before I even was able to ask it. It's very convenient. But I think it's helpful for people. I think people do need to hear, like, because age group athletes in Spartan aren't being paid. And I think that's the distinction. Like, elite athletes will make the time and create the ability to travel, even if it's not convenient in their lives, because they are competing for prize money. Age group athletes are not competing for prize money, so it's a little tougher. But so any way you can figure out how to make it work to qualify for what you want to qualify for, even if you don't need to anymore, is helpful. So, what advice would you give to someone who maybe around your age has entertained the idea of maybe trying a Spartan race or another type of obstacle race, but may find it intimidating or out of her league, which is something you probably felt when you started this? What advice would you have?
Well, I would train for it. I see people out on sometimes the Spartan races. I feel like they just kind of, willy-nilly decide to do it and they're not ready to do it. So, I mean, I think I would investigate it a little. I would try to start doing some running, maybe going to a gym. I tell people, because people ask me all the time, well, what do I need to do, to be able to do one of these races? And I said, well, there's gonna be some running. Start with a sprint. I always advise starting with a sprint.
Forget what I did.
Forget what I did. Yeah. And start with a sprint and, do some running, definitely do a little bit of training for it. I wouldn't advise just going and, especially if you haven't been athletic your whole life. I would say you should go and go to the gym and start doing some weights and, grip strength and arm strength and things like that. But go for it. I mean, it's fun and, just go out there to have fun. Go with some friends. There's lots of Facebook groups now and that people can look at and join and kind of get ideas on training. And it's easier when you're doing it with a friend or doing it with a bunch of friends or your family. Go with your kids, get your kids out there. It's a fun family activity as well. I mean, that's how I started. It was because of my family. So.
Yeah, it's such a great way to bond with family and be able to share something that could become a passion for all of you. I've met people, like I have a client who now races, his kids do the kids races and he races the adult races. And it's like, it's cool because he could pursue his passion, but not just leave. It's like, I'm going to go do this race and you all stay home. No, they all come with him. They can do it as well. And it becomes a shared passion, which makes it fun.
And my grandson who's 6 has already, he started doing Spartan races when he was 4. So
nice. Generational now.
That's right. He's doing Spartan. He loves Spartan. He loves the terrain races. He goes to any of the local ones that we've got here. We take him to those and he races them and he has a great time. So
fun. And you talk about fun. I think that's just been a common through line in everything you've mentioned in this interview is like, don't freak out about how you do if it's your first race. Just go to have a good time. If you have fun, you'll want to do it again. When I run with my clients, I want to make sure that they have a good time. Like above all, I want to make sure that they had a great experience and have a good time because they're more likely to want to do it again if they had fun with it. And I think that's really key. And for you in your toughest competitive moment, the moment you turned it around and started having fun with it, you changed your race. And so that could really just set the tone for anybody's experience.
And for older people, get your kids out there. I mean, it's, like I said, when I was in Florida, I ran with my daughter and her fiance. I ran my race. We did the sprint and I ran elite in the morning and then I ran with them in an open wave and just had a blast. I mean, we just went through it all together and it was just super fun. It's fun every now and then, especially as a competitive athlete, to just turn those competitive juices off and just have fun.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And it's just, nothing like healthy bonding, like healthy fitness-based bonding with your family. Like, there's nothing better than that. So before we go, do you have one parting piece of wisdom that you've learned in your competitive journey that you would like to share with our listeners?
I don't know. I mean, especially for older listeners, like for 40 plus, 50 plus, staying active and healthy, I think is important. I mean, I don't want to be one of those people when I get to be 70 or 80 sitting around doing nothing. I think the more active you are, the more healthier you're going to be, the more you're going to be able to do. So I just think, just getting out and having fun and finding something that you really enjoy.
Yeah. Find an active endeavor that speaks to you, that you have fun with and could become your passion and drives you to continue doing it. Basically, that's the story. That's your story.
Yeah. Don't use age as an excuse. I think that's a big one. You know what? Age is just a number, as they say, right?
Yeah. I actually go one farther. I like to say age is not just a number. It's an asset. That it can be an advantage.
When I'm out there racing, I don't feel like I'm 57. I mean, I feel like I'm mad at myself because, well, why didn't I beat that 30-year-old, And I don't feel like it.
Right. Yeah. I get the impression that your brain feels younger than you are.
Yes, I think so.
And that's, and as you mentioned, that could be your downfall sometimes because your brain's like, I don't need to recover. And your body's like, yes, I do. But
people ask me how old I am and I almost don't want to say it because I'm like, no, I'm not really that old.
Yeah. But you know what? No one would expect it either. And so that's why I'm of the school of like proudly proclaim your age because you want to surprise people with that. And you want to show people that what 57 can do. Because I think that's important as people get older to not believe that some certain things are out of their reach or not available to them because they're a certain age. And you're here to show that you can be 57 years old and just dominate at a sport. And you weren't playing sports your entire life. You took a 30-year break.
Yeah.
30-year break. I think people are going to be surprised to hear that.
We need more 50-plus-year-old women out there for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We gotta bolster the competition for you out there. Yeah. So finally, if someone wants to learn more about you, how can they do that? Where can people connect with you online or on social media?
Over 50 Spartan on my Instagram. And
that's easy enough.
And then my Facebook. I mean, I didn't always, like, my Facebook was kind of my private one. It's kind of now turned into Spartan because I've had so many people want to be friends and whatnot on it. So now even my Facebook is kind of turned in. I mean, that's under Andrea Owen, simple as that. But some people, not everybody's on Instagram. Some people are on Facebook. And so at first I was going to keep that kind of private, just family, but it's kind of grown to be more than that. So
yeah, it happens in the Spartan community. And as you become more well known in the Spartan community, people definitely want to connect, and especially older athletes. Not everybody who's of a certain age is on Instagram. Instagram is sort of the millennial platform.
As my children would tell me, nobody uses Facebook anymore, Mom.
Yeah, no, Facebook is for moms and grandmas now. Yep. And every marketing, seminar I attend, it's like, the basically like 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond use Facebook, and like nobody in their 20s uses Facebook. But exactly. So if you want to connect with people in your age group, in your demographic, or if they want to connect with you, they are probably more likely to be on Facebook. But more and more of us are on Instagram as well. So over 50 Spartan on Instagram, Andrea Owen on Facebook. Andrea, thank you so much for being on the Seasoned Athlete podcast. As a Spartan age group athlete myself, I've had the honor of getting to know other over 40 and, in your case, over 50 Spartan age group athletes, and it just continues to reaffirm how amazing this community is. I've had the pleasure of racing alongside you, and if we're being real, getting passed by you multiple times. Let's be real.
Chicago was fun. I mean, we had fun.
We had fun. You were talking about, it's like it takes me a while to get my legs going, and I do well on the hills, and then when it's not just like a flat out speed race. And in both Chicago and Big Bear, we had the hills in Big Bear and we had the mud in Chicago. Mm-hmm. You hit that stride, and it was about midway through in each of those races where you passed me. So, so it's like you hit that moment where your juices were flowing just right, and that's when you get me in those races. But it inspires me to push hard on the course and do my best to keep up with you. So I want to thank you for doing what you do out there, being a positive representative for athleticism in women over 50, and for being on the Seasoned Athlete podcast.
Oh, well, you're welcome, and it was good. I'll see you in Utah, right?
I will see you in Utah. Absolutely.
All right, seasoned athletes, here are my top takeaways from Andrea Owen. Number 1, if you want to try a new sport, do it with friends. It's a great way to reduce or remove the intimidation factor from something that may seem challenging or scary at the outset, and an amazing opportunity to bond with your friends or even your family or your spouse. Number 2, sometimes there's a fine line between how old we are and how old we feel. The more active we are, the younger we feel. But we still need to be mindful of our bodies as we age, even as we live an active lifestyle. So be sure to make recovery a priority so that you can act as young as your brain thinks you are. And number 3, it doesn't matter if you've never played sports before. It doesn't matter if you've taken a 30-year hiatus from doing anything competitive. It's never too late to get out there and try something new. You never know. You might find your new passion, and like Andrea, you may just be really good at it. Thanks again to Andrea Owen. Thank you for listening to the Seasoned Athlete podcast. The music you heard in this episode is from someone who is out of this world, Jason Achilles. Learn more about him at jasonachilles.com. Seasoned athletes, it's time to make your game plan for 2020, because not only is this a new year, it's a new decade. And I have declared this to be the Decade of Ageless. To help you jumpstart your own Decade of Ageless, I am making time available for a complimentary Age Like an Athlete strategy call with you. This is an opportunity to get some one-on-one coaching from me to help you get clarity on what you want to achieve and an action plan to get there. I have limited spots available, so if you want to grab one, go to seasonedathlete.me and click on the bar at the top of the page to book your call. It is time to take action on this Decade of Ageless. So go out and embrace your extraordinary, my fellow seasoned athletes, because you so can.